Hi guys, so now that I've got your attention, let's talk about the future of the Halloween franchise. No, I'm just kidding. After the intro, we will indeed talk about some sexual weirdness. So I thought I'd do something a little bit random and offbeat today. So the other week I saw this really weird sex scene in a movie and I thought to myself, you know what, why don't I write down 9 other weird sex-related scenes that I've seen in movies from over the years, and I'll make a video about it. So that's how I have arrived at today. Now, I'm going to be completely honest at the top of the video. There are no clips in this video. This is going to be entirely me just talking about these scenes one by one in a hopefully sensible and mature manner. Mostly mature manner. So let's dive into it. This is not a ranking. I'm just going to go through these probably in the order that I wrote them down, to be honest. So let's start with the first one. So first up we have Cube 2, Hypercube. If you don't know, this is a film about a giant fortress full of trapped rooms, but the laws of time and gravity don't apply here. It's a sci-fi horror film. It's not particularly realistic, but it's not bad as sequels go. There's one scene where a young couple walk into this room, and at first they don't think that there's a trap in it, so they start having sex, because I guess they're in the mood, but what they don't know is that there is a trap, it's just invisible. So the air in this room has been modified to age people a hell of a lot faster, and these two characters don't realise it. So they start having sex, but they literally die of old age while they are having sex, and they don't notice, seemingly, because later on some other characters stumble across their bodies. I think that's how this plays out. I've not seen this movie in a long time, so forgive me if I'm a little bit off with the details, but at some point we do see the dead bodies, and they are literally frozen in mid-coitus with like wrinkled faces to show that they've already started going through the rigor mortis stage. Did neither of them look at each other during sex and think, oh God, my partner suddenly looks 65? Maybe they did it with their eyes closed. I don't know, but it's a super bizarre scene. I'm going to give a weirdness rating for all of these, actually, and I'm going to give this one 4 out of 5 on the weirdness scale. Next up we have A Bay of Blood. So I feel like I should quickly address Friday the 13th Part 2 before I talk about this one. So in Friday 2, Jason slams a spear down through 2 people who are having sex. It's been heavily edited in the final movie because the actress in the scene was only 15 at the time and they didn't realise it when they cast her. So you watch it now, it's been heavily trimmed. It feels like on paper that should have been the best kill in the movie, and yet it kind of isn't. But this kill had been done like 10 years previously in A Bay of Blood, except it shows a lot more and it's just generally better. But the reason why I'm putting this scene into this list today is not because of the kill itself, it's because of how the 2 victims react just afterwards. They kind of carry on writhing and squirming on top of each other for like a few more seconds, even though they've just been skewered. And you could sort of look at this and think, well, this is just the normal death throes, right? But I look at it and I think, are they doing this because it's such a natural instinct for men and women to have sex that their bodies are just wanting to carry on having sex even though they're dying? I don't know, make your own mind up if you watch the scene. If you've never seen A Bay of Blood, it's absolutely worth checking out. It's not as famous as Friday the 13th Part 2, but I would argue it's at least as good as that movie, just very different. It's a very good horror film, regardless of this pretty terrific kill scene. As for a weirdness rating here, I'm going to go for 3 out of 5. Next up we have 40 Days and 40 Nights. So this is one of the very few times you will ever hear me talking about a comedy film on this channel. I can't even remember the circumstances that led me to watch this. Maybe it was just on TV like 20 years ago or something. But anyway, the film is about a guy who has a bet that he can go 40 days without sex, but he's not allowed to masturbate either. So as you can imagine, the longer this goes on, the more and more desperate he gets. I mean, he's like a wreck by the time it gets to day 39. He does make it that long, and by this point, loads of his friends and colleagues have found out about the bet, and there's loads of people like swapping money and making bets with each other. It becomes like a thing that spreads this. Like everybody in the town knows about the bet, seemingly. But this guy, he's going crazy. He can't wait for this thing to end. And what makes it worse is that he's got a new girlfriend who he's still not slept with. Now, when it comes to the final night, his girlfriend handcuffs him to the bed so that he can't do anything to himself in the middle of the night and ruin the bet at the last minute. She then leaves the house because she's not living with him yet. Obviously, they've only just started dating. But then this is where things get weird, if it's not weird already. So this guy's got a devious ex-girlfriend who finds out about the bet. She comes round, lets herself in, and while he's asleep, she just clambers on top of him and starts having sex with him, thereby ruining the bet. Now, this scene is quite controversial. Now, when this film came out in 2002, I don't think this film thought that this would be a controversial scene. But if you try and watch this scene on YouTube now, there's loads of comments underneath just saying how wrong this scene is, that this girl would just come and do this to this guy for obvious reasons. But at the time this movie came out, I don't think this script was even aware of that at all. Or it doesn't seem to be, but let's not get sidetracked with that. So I could have included this scene in this video just for how weird it is up to this point. But what makes it even more bizarre is that while the sex is going on, or rape if you want to call it that, he's having a dream where he's like flying through a field full of giant breasts or something like that. It's been a while since I saw the film. And it's like the most intense sexual dream he's ever had in his life. But what he doesn't realise is that he's actually having sex for real. He just doesn't know it yet because he hasn't woken up and seen his ex sat on top of him. I'm giving this one 5 out of 5 for weirdness. And honestly, this will probably be the last time for a while you hear me talking about comedy. So in Piranha 2, a man and a woman swim down to a shipwreck and they start getting it on, and you know they mean to go all the way because you can see them taking their underwear off, and they even take their scuba masks away from their faces and kiss each other at one point. So they're clearly about to have sex. And I just think to myself, would that even be possible at that depth? Now, I did a little bit of online research on this the other day because I had a spare minute, and I found a few bits and pieces that suggest that it would be kind of risky actually to do it under the water. But I couldn't find anything that says you definitely shouldn't do it under the water. Me personally, not a chance I would ever risk that, I don't think. I mean, when I'm scuba diving at those sorts of depths, I keep my hands to myself, you know. And I must point out that the couple in this film don't actually go through with it in the end. They get attacked by Piranha just as they're about to start. James Bond has sex under the water in Thunderball. He sleeps with Domino, clearly under the water. Well, he doesn't fall asleep under the water, but you get my point. But I'm going to give this one a weirdness rating of just 2 out of 5, because I guess people probably do this for real, and they don't think it's weird, they just do it maybe not at the depths that you see in this film, but still. And how bizarre is it that we are talking about Piranha 2 and the weirdness of Piranha 2, and yet we're not mentioning flying fish? So here we have another sequel. In Wrong Turn 2, there are a brother and sister who are having an incestuous relationship with each other. You might be relieved to hear that they are on the villain's team. And I guess this would be weird in and of itself, but there comes a scene in this movie where the good guys are traipsing through the forest and they come across this brother and sister literally doing the do up against a tree, and the girl is wearing the face of a woman she's killed like 20 minutes ago. So I guess this character is self-aware enough to know that she's not particularly good looking. I mean, she's literally deformed. So this woman she's killed, she's peeled her face off. It was a really good looking woman who died. She's taken a layer of face, put it on her own, stuck it on her face like I guess Leatherface would do in those movies. And she's thought, oh, my brother will really enjoy looking at this face instead while we're doing it. So they literally have sex with her wearing another woman's face. And I don't think we need any more comment as to why this qualifies as a weird sex scene. But Wrong Turn 2 is a lot of fun. It's my favourite film in that franchise. But as to this scene, when it comes to the weirdness of it, I'm going to give it a wholehearted 4 out of 5. Those of a nervous disposition might want to just skip past this one. So this is more of a rape scene than a sex scene, but I did struggle to think of 10 for this list, in all honesty. But me including this film in this list may at least make you aware of this film if you haven't seen it, because it is a good watch. So you might not think much of this at first, because it's a little bit of a Texas Chainsaw type knockoff, I suppose. We follow a middle-aged couple as they're going through the wild, and They get captured by these three poorly educated idiots who just terrorise this couple. They lock them up in their garage and promise them that they're going to do nasty things to them. Nothing to see so far. The film is kind of boring up to this point. But the way that they kill two of these villains is so creative. So there's this one kill where this woman, she sets up this like mousetrap type thing in the garage where if this guy steps into this trap, he gets hoisted up and his arms and limbs are bent in all these different directions. It's kind of weird to describe, but I thought it was really clever. But the main kill, the one I wanted to talk about, so the main villain comes into the garage at one point and sort of implies that he's going to do nasty things to the woman up in his bedroom, if you know what I mean. And then he walks away and leaves the husband and wife to stew on that. But then the wife starts preparing herself. She gets a tin can out of the corner. She starts peeling like jagged strips away on the inside. And then she puts it inside herself so that when the villain takes her up to his bedroom eventually, he gets a really nasty surprise when he starts being inappropriate with her. And even though this guy is a piece of shit and he absolutely deserves this, it's still screamish. It's awful to watch. It's kind of like, oh, dearie me. And I think he's like walking around the room like clutching himself and there's blood coming everywhere. And that's not even what kills him in the end. I think he stumbles downstairs and gets finished off by an angry dog, which is kind of funny. This reminds me of a similar film, or a similar scene, I should say, from a film called Teeth, where this woman has this like razor sharp clitoris. It's kind of weird, and she could expand it outwards whenever she wants. So predictably, she ends up killing the final villain by having sex with him and then lopping his penis off while they're at it. I'm not a big fan of Teeth. I saw it once and didn't think too much of it, in all honesty. Storm Warning is a better film. I'd recommend this one more. As for a weirdness rating for the scene we were talking about, I guess I'll give it 3 out of 5. So I think we need a little bit of cheerfulness after talking about Storm Warning, and there's not much that gets me more cheerful in the world of movies than a Roger Moore James Bond film. And it just so happens that in Moonraker, Bond has sex with Holly Goodhead at 0 gravity. You can literally see them doing it, floating in the air. Really cool. I'd be more willing to try this than the whole underwater thing. I mean, there's probably still some kind of risk. But, I mean, it's not like I'm ever going to get the chance. Well, unless I got wealthy enough to go on one of those Richard Branson Virgin Atlantic space trips, although even then, would I even get the opportunity once I was up there? Never mind. But this is a super cool scene. I particularly like the gag that Q does. I think they're attempting re-entry, sir. And I just hope that it worked out for these two characters, because it would have been really embarrassing if M had had to visit the Queen a week later and say, I'm sorry, Mum, James couldn't make it. Yes, it's true he saved the world, but he had penis complications on the way back down to Earth, unfortunately. But I'll pass on your regards. But in terms of a weirdness rating for this, I'm going to give it just the 2 out of 5. I guess it's not that weird, actually, but it's still a super cool scene. Next up, we have Howling 2, My Sister is a Werewolf, and it's just occurred to me, we've had a hell of a lot of sequels in this list today. So we've had Cube 2, Wrong Turn 2, Piranha 2, and now Howling 2. So what this proves is, I guess, is that if you really want to see some bizarre sexual content, just watch a lot of sequels, and God will provide. Now, Howling 2 is an utterly crap sequel. Let's get that out of the way, although it's still better than Howling 3. So I suppose it just depends which film you're comparing it to. But it's kind of a 2 for the price of 1, this, because there are 2 weird sex scenes in this movie from memory. So the woman who runs the villain's werewolf pack, I forget her name, Sybil something, maybe. Sybil, it's not going to come to me, but she's got all these sycophants just sat around in her throne room, and they're all dressed like extras from Masters of the Universe or Star Trek 2, maybe. But they all have this orgy at one point where they're all doing it around the room, and it just looks really bizarre. I might not have included Howling 2 in this list if it was just for that one scene, but later on there's another sex scene where... So this same woman, she's in bed with 2 guys, I think. It's been a couple of years since I saw the movie. Now, if they were just having a threesome in any normal scene, I think nothing of it, but all 3 of them are sort of halfway between man and werewolf in terms of their transformation stage. So they look like humans when they're in bed with each other, but yet they've got the hair of werewolves all over them. It's like they started to transform, and then halfway through the transformation thought, you know what, let's not finish this transformation for now, let's have sex with each other. So weird. And I don't think this particular scene gets too gratuitous, but you do see them all kind of in bed with each other, rolling around for a few seconds, and it's like, oh, this movie tries to be titillating and completely fails at it. But I'm gonna give it a spot in this list, and in terms of the weirdness rating, I guess we'll go for 3.5 out of 5. Midsommar is about a group of Americans who go and stay at this Swedish commune, and there's a girl there who really wants to have a baby with one of these visitors, but they hardly know each other. So what she does is she sets it up so that this guy gets a drink with like some kind of really strong stimulant in it that acts like Viagra. So once he's had this drink, he's horny as hell and ready for anything. In the meantime, this girl has set up a trail of petals that leads all the way to the barn out back. So this guy, in his aroused state, he follows this trail to the barn, and once he gets in there, the girl's just lying there, stark naked, ready for him. But what's strange is that she's brought all these like aunts and uncles and cousins to come and stand around as spectators while the deed is happening. So they get on with it, and I can't remember if all the spectators are humming something during the sex or whether they're singing some kind of weird song. It's been a while since I saw the movie, but my favourite part is when this old grandma steps forward. She's clearly getting frustrated that the guy hasn't come already, so she just sort of gives him a little pat on the arse, like, come on, you can do it. This is like halfway through, as if you'd want that during the deed. Now what's funny is that straight afterwards the girl sort of sits up and says, I can feel the baby already, as if you could. What I think they should have done is a post-credit scene where the girl is holding a negative pregnancy test and she just goes, oh, for God's sake, and then we cut to black, and then that's the end of it. That would have been really cool. I must admit I was struggling a little bit for a 10th pick, and in the end I was kind of like, you know what, let's just throw in the tree rape from Evil Dead. It is a weird sex scene of sorts, I guess. It's also a little bit of a controversial scene because I've heard it said many times this is the only weak point in the original Evil Dead. Did that scene need to be there? Probably not. I mean, it doesn't bother me as much as some people. It's not the scariest part of that scene, though. Like, the tree rape thing, it's kind of icky, but the really unsettling part of that whole sequence is when the woman is just running towards the house and the camera's following her. That's the genuinely scary part, not the bit where she's lying on the ground being assaulted by branches and roots, but hey-ho, it is what it is. There was this one time I was watching it when my wife was making food in the kitchen, I think, and during the entire scene I kept thinking, you know what, she's going to come in now and look at the screen and think, what the hell are you watching now? But she didn't, thank God, although that eventuality could still come to pass in the future, because I do tend to go back to this film sort of every 2 or 3 years. We'll leave it there for today, though. That was 10 weird sex scenes in movies. Feel free to leave some of yours in the comments. Actually, no, don't do that. You don't have to do that. And I guess I will catch you all again next time. Bye-bye.